among my many passions are movies, and I like movies from all eras, including the 30s and the Busby Berkeley movies of that time with all the dancing and the singing. And there was a song, and I forget what it is, but it was from the 30s. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
Whap, you just got slapped in the face. It kicked, it hurt. You can cry in the corner for a while. Eventually, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you start all over again.
Right.
And I don't know how else better to address it.
Welcome to Beyond the Blueprint, powered by Contractors, Closers, and Connections, Orlando. Join me for in-depth interviews with some of the top commercial real estate and development executives in the industry. We uncover their success stories, their strategies, and their lessons learned along the way. Gain valuable insight whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out. Episode 2, sitting down with Dan Farmer on the Beyond the Blueprint podcast. Dan, I appreciate you sharing some of your stories in episode 1, where you came from, how you got to where you are today. So episode 2, we are going to jump into some questions, just kind of with your career and some questions in your success and what you qualify as success, things like that. So the first question is going to be, was there a moment that you would say is the most influential in your career to get you where you got today? So maybe there was one pivotal moment that you were like, okay, well, now I can do it. I know what I need to do. Or there was something that you look back on and you're like, wow, I really needed to go through that in order to get where I am today.
No. I think probably the word would be organic. My career has been more organic than that.
Yeah.
It just got to a point where I was doing something and I realized that you're doing it and you continue to do it. And at points in at least my life, the decisions were very obvious. As I told you in the first one, when I started my own career, I was working for another firm and had clients that came to me and was moonlighting.
Mm-hmm.
Not something uncommon at all in the architectural industry.
Right.
And at one point in time, I sat there at tax time, actually. And I'm looking at what I made with my firm, and I'm looking at what I made with my regular job. And it was like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
And I went to one of my clients, somebody that I've mentioned here, who is a very good friend, and told him that. And he said, well, it's about damn time. I've been waiting for you to come to that conclusion. And I decided to open my own doors and go from there and resign from my job and move on. And that's really pretty much how it happened. And I think that almost everything in my career has had that kind of a transition to it. There was not an aha moment.
Right. More of like an organic flow.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a silly story, if you will, but in my early years here in Orlando, after I'd started my firm, I was doing a lot of, my firm focused mostly on tenant work within existing buildings more than brand new buildings from the outside. And I was working with a lot of realtors, and one of the realtors in the industrial sector came to me and said, I've got this new tenant, and I'm just not sure what to do about it. And they store tires. Well, they stored a lot of tires.
Yeah.
200,000 square feet of tires. Yeah. And what do you know about that anyway? How do we handle that? There's all kinds of fire codes. This is dangerous. What do we do? And it's like, let me go find out. So I picked up the code books and read through that, and we got through that process. And in truth, there were some issues with the fire sprinkler system, but it's a commodity. You protect the commodity and you move on. It wasn't that big of a deal. Well, very shortly, one of their competitors called me and said, we've got another company here that stores tires. We did 3 warehouses in 4 years for tenant build out for tire storage facilities. So all of a sudden I was the tire guy that knew how to do that and all that kind of stuff. And that led to other things. It led to industrial things. So there was never anything really.
Right. But at some point you had created that momentum, and that momentum just kind of organically just kept building.
It really did. It came from doing one job at a time, doing it well, getting a reputation for doing that, other people seeing that and hearing about you. At this point particularly, and Well, I'll actually be very honest with you. For the last 20 years, I don't do a whole lot of what you would consider traditional marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the work that comes to us is through referrals.
Yeah.
From other clients. Now, you may have to market those a little stronger depending on who it is and how different it is. But if you will, I'm at this point in my life kind of getting passed around. You know, somebody knows of me, somebody recommends me, that type of thing. And frankly, I think that's a very, very good way to grow the type of business that I have.
Yeah.
Which is small and it's meant to be small.
Right.
I've been part of big and I find out that I'm actually much better at small.
Yeah. It's good to know thyself, right? So
it is. The large firms, when you get to the position I had, the major oh dams lay on your desk.
Yeah.
Okay. And when it gets there, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing now in a smaller, more intimate type of situation is be able to evolve one-on-one with my clients.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
And frankly, I may or may not have been wealthier going another path, but I'm certainly comfortable and very happy with that choice. And
it fits you.
Happiness is very much a part of what I consider to be success.
So that goes into the next question.
I'm glad I could lead into that.
Great segue. So what's your version or definition of success?
Well, certainly there is a financial piece of it, but that's knowing that you have a certain level of comfort. Mm-hmm. Also knowing it can disappear like that, but that's part of it. But to me, I think it's happiness and comfort with what you're doing. And in business, at least I've found with most successful people in business, it's not just the business and you don't cut that out of your life. It's a passion with you. It grows into it. It's all part of it. It supersedes over into your family. It goes into your friends. It goes into social networks. When you travel, in my case, I'm on a busman's holiday. Every place I can't go without looking and thinking something about the architectural benefit or disaster that has happened in this one thing. And all those pieces just lead to a very full and rich life.
Yeah. It's being passionate about what you do. Simon Sinek.
You have to absolutely enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, passion will follow that real enjoyment.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy it, I'm not sure you can be truly successful.
Yeah.
I know many, many lawyers. I've done a lot of work for lawyers. I've had many of my friends from college, went to law school. I can't tell you how many lawyers that I've known and worked with and done offices for that just can't wait to retire and go do something else. I also know lawyers that are so passionate about what they do, it's in their life.
Right.
I'm sure they litigate their children.
Right.
But, because it is a passion.
Yeah.
And I think part of that success is understanding your passion, recognizing it, and being able to attain that passion.
Yeah.
Simon, to me, that's all part of the success. It's not just the money piece.
Right. Simon Sinek has a great book, Start With Why, right? So it's you got to start there at that place, because at the end of the day, your success, financial opportunity, relationships, influence, power, it's going to ebb and flow. And if you don't have a base of why, then whenever those low times hit, you're not going to be prepared to actually pull through and get to the hills.
Well, I think it's probably more true in my profession as an architect, because when you consider the education, the experience one has to have, you could certainly do better in medicine or law.
Sure.
Without a question of a doubt.
Sure.
Financially. People that are successful as architects thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah. What would you say would be the biggest misconception of success?
That it's all about money.
Yeah.
With a lot of people, it's all about power too.
Yeah.
To me, that really isn't there. That isn't the reason I do things. Again, it's the personal satisfaction that to me really gives success.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it well, it just grows and you become successful beside yourself. If you have a passion and love what you're doing, if you have ethics and morals that take you into an appropriate level of business as opposed to finding your way to jail.
Right.
And generally people with ethics and morals don't end up in jail.
Right. And I think you've got to find that fulfillment in life, right? So
yeah, it has to be rewarding to you.
Yeah.
If it's not rewarding, it's just drudgery.
Right. So in obviously in business, especially, the business that we're in, I mean, relationships are really important. What would you say has been some of the key, whether they're indicators or things that you kind of stick back by when building relationship, and how to kind of make one relationship start from nothing and then kind of grow and mature over time?
God, Branson, I'm not really quite sure how to answer that question. I've never set out to build a relationship.
Yeah. It
That's
just
never been the
happens.
goal. The goal is doing a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can tell you my business is build and repeat business. So obviously the relationships have been built with people because they keep coming back to me.
Right.
And the personal side of it too, the find that I would consider most of my clients, certainly if I'm not friends with them, I'm friendly with them.
Sure.
It just all works together. And to me, it has to do with ethical practices,
Right.
doing what you say you will do, following through on it, being consistent in how you do things and how you treat people. That's how you build relationships.
Right.
That's absolutely how you build relationships.
Do a good job and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be trustworthy.
Yeah, I think it's real simple, right? It's
Yeah,
not people overcomplicate. Oh,
it's
well, I got to
very-
take
it's
this
very
person
hard
out
to
to
do.
lunch,
But it's really very hard
Yeah.
to do, because to be consistent and to be ethical, I find myself regularly asking question when I get, as everybody does, angry or trapped in a corner or whatever, and you're in a crisis situation, to be able to stop and say, what is the right thing to do here?
Right.
That goes way back to my parents,
Mhm.
living the golden rule and all that kind of stuff, and early education, all that kind of stuff. It's something that I found with my college fraternity about being an ethical and man of principle, if to put it any other way. In business, it's so easy to err and stray off
Mhm.
and go down not the best path if you forget to stop and ask yourself, what are you doing and what is the right thing to do here? Not what is right for me, but what is the right thing to do?
Right. Today's episode is brought to you by Bryce Knuth of Insurance Office of America. As a contractor or real estate owner in Florida, you've likely experienced the impact of rising insurance premiums year after year. With the challenging insurance marketplace, having a specialist who focuses on your industry is critical now more than ever before. If you'd like a second set of eyes on your current insurance program or don't have a relationship with your current broker, please contact Bryce Knuth at 407-697-6944 via call or text, or email bryce.knuth@ioausa.com. Don't let rising insurance costs catch you off guard. Reach out to Bryce today.
And again, I look at my architectural education on top of everything about being an artist. One of the things that they teach you is how to problem solve. Well, problem solving is listening so that you understand what the problem is you're trying to solve, and then figuring out what your client actually needs to solve that problem. That's all part of how you do a business. It doesn't matter what business it is. It's still problem solving, and you're still working through that. And if you're going to have good interpersonal relationships and build a network, it's all based on those pieces of your ability to look at the bigger picture of what is the right thing to do.
Right.
And to ethically having the strength to be able to follow that, even if it's not pleasant.
Right.
Even if it's not necessarily in your financial best interest, but to recognize, because while it may not be in the short term, I will guarantee you from everything I've seen in my life, in the long term, it'll pay off for you.
Yeah. Well, and it's having, like you had mentioned earlier, that like it's easy to veer off. It's easy to make one decision leads to two. Before you know, you're like, holy crap, how did I get over here? I've made all these bad decisions. So I think it's important to have that constant gut check and that constant reminder to yourself of like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? Even if it's very minimal, but it's just a little bit, creeping, that'll be to a bigger obstacle later on.
Goes back to my early analogy about sailing on
Yeah.
the lake. If you don't where you're going, what's that line? It's from a Jimmy Buffett song. If you don't know where you're going, you're probably not going to get there. I've really paraphrased that. And I butchered the song, but it's very true. And in sailing, if you can't focus on the point where you want to be, the high probability you'll only get there by pure luck.
Yeah.
So you do have to have a direction of where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
think
good.
that's very important for particularly young people to learn, because I think in this day and age, there aren't necessarily the values and the morals taught. And I'm not suggesting that any particular religion or any particular dogma.
There's still character. You have to have character built in a person. I mean, that still
Yes.
is valuable.
And you can disagree and you can get along very well with
Yeah.
people that have different
Opinions or views.
Yes, I was about to say morals or ethics, and I don't think that's true. I think when you find people that have different morals and ethics than you do, you're probably not
Probably need to
gonna have
walk
a
away
long
from
relationship.
that.
Yeah, it's probably not going to
Yeah.
work. But that you may disagree. God knows everything from politics to everything else in this world. But if you're surrounded by people that are ethically on the right course,
Yeah.
and by my count, there are at least 6 or 7 very, very good ethical bases that are out there.
Sure.
They're all slightly different, but they all basically get down to doing the right thing and treating people as you'd like to be treated
Sure.
yourself.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's really the basis of anything that builds a network or builds
Relationship.
relationships. Yeah.
So in your career time, what would you say how you overcome failure? So obviously you've seen your success, but there's also, like we mentioned, those ebb and flows,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I wish I could say I never had a failure.
yeah. Well, I had one guy on here a couple of weeks ago. He's, fail fast. Just get to failure, and then we'll figure it out. We'll kind of, is that kind of your mentality, or is it just like, hey, when failure comes, we get to it, we evaluate it, figure out how we can do better? What's your outlook on failure, and how do you overcome that?
Well, among my many passions are movies, and I like movies from all eras, including the 30s and the Busby Berkeley movies of that time with all the dancing and the singing. And there was a song, and I forget what it is, but it was from the 30s. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
When you fail, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
Whap, you just got slapped in the face. It kicked, it hurt. You can cry in the corner for a while. Eventually, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you start all over again.
Right.
And I don't know how else better to address it.
There's a quote that I love about failure. It says fail forward, or fall forward. Right. So you're going to fall. It's just inevitable. Failure is going to come. If you're trying to achieve anything in life, there's going to be failure. It's just fall forward. When you fall, just fall forward. Make sure you just keep going forward. You get up, you take another step, and you can fall again. Just keep going.
Well, and that's exactly how business happens.
Yeah.
I remember the day I got my registration as an architect a long, long time ago. I walked into my boss's office and he looked up at me. He said, "Stop right there." He said, "I know why you're here." But he said, "Dan, trust me on this. It just takes 5 years. I can't tell you why it takes 5 years. It just takes 5 years." Well, I was mildly insulted.
Yeah.
Registered
I could do it
by
in
the
3.
state of Ohio. They recognize it now. I should have the laurels of the world and the money's coming to me. I did ultimately understand that, and it took about 5 years.
Yeah.
Because you have to fall in to enough potholes and climb out of them to recognize that there are potholes there and step around them.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, in my profession at that time in the 70s and early 80s, it just took about 5 years to recognize enough of them so that you had that experience, that you were actually valuable to somebody.
Yeah. So
Now,
all the aspiring architects, 5 years it's going to take.
It's different now.
Yeah.
Time has accelerated. I won't tell you it's 5 years. It certainly was at that time. But I will tell you this. Once you've recognized all those, in another 5 years, you will fall into a lot of bigger potholes that you never saw coming or that society changed on you. And you know that many more.
Right.
And 50 years later, I know a whole hell of a lot of potholes I'm not going to fall in again.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot more out there that I have yet to fall into.
Yeah. There always will be potholes. That's just inevitable.
Yeah, that's all part of success.
All right. So we're going to go into rapid fire.
Okay.
Short, simple, sweet question. What's something that most people don't know about you?
I don't think there's a lot. I'm pretty open about my life and I express myself out. I don't think there's much that people don't know about me. I would say maybe the fact that one of my bucket list items is now to walk on all 7 continents.
Okay. How close are you?
I'm halfway there.
Halfway. Okay.
I got a ways to go.
Yeah.
It only used to be 6 continents, but now that the ice melt has started happening in Antarctica, I think maybe 7 might make it one day.
Who is your inspiration?
I have lots of them
Yeah.
at different points in my life. I'll give a general version of somebody like Elon Musk. Stephen Jobs is another one that's on that same list.
Yeah.
Here's a man that was a pure visionary. I mean, he was probably closer to the aesthetic of an architect.
Sure.
And just that simple little thought of, I'm going to build a product that people want, even though they don't realize they even need it. And look how just the iPhone, and pick it, I don't mean just the iPhone, all the others that are there, it's a computer in our hand.
Yeah.
He said this over 40 years ago.
Yeah. 40 years ago, they didn't even know.
Well, and he's sitting there in an interview, and I remember the interviewer actually laughed. It was on one of the big networks. They said, so who do you think's going to win this thing? Is IBM going to win the mainframes war, or is it going to be personal computers like Compaq? Who's going to win this war?
Right.
He said, neither. In 25 years, you won't own one computer. You'll own 100 computers, all specialized. And the commentator actually laughed. Oh, you own 100 computers? You have 50 in your car.
Yeah.
One on my
On
arm.
your arm. Yeah, that's How would you describe yourself in 5 words?
Well, I'd start probably with happy.
Good.
Motivated. I'll leave it with those 2.
Okay.
Okay. I think those are probably good.
If you had to ask or tell God one thing, what would it be?
Keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work.
And thanks.
And thanks. Dan, I appreciate you sitting down with me. It has been a true pleasure to understand just more about you and your career path and your journey through life and hear your wisdom, the things that you're pursuing. And as you wind down your great career, I'm sure that you'll be on your boat more than you think. So, Dan, I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm not sure how much I really contributed here, but thank you for the honor of asking me to come.
Great content. I'm sure our listeners will get a lot out of it. So Beyond the Blueprint, I appreciate you sitting down with me and Dan Farmer on this podcast. Stay tuned for next time as we got a ton more episodes and a lot more value to bring you. See you next time.